The cow that makes a gif of its milk never wonders why. The horse that bears its rider mile after mile may get tired, but doesn't question his duty to bear that rider. Only humanity questions. Why? Why am I here? What is my purpose? That is the big question mark at the center of human life. You have been given, as human beings, the ability to question, to wonder. Because this life is a puzzle to be understood, to be disassembled and reassembled in 1,000 ways to form ever-shifting patterns, because you are here to learn, to discover, to explore, to be enlightened, always you are driven onward by that question, why? What is this purpose that is being served here? What am I to do? Is life just getting up, eating, working, making love, sleeping, and dying? The answer throughout human history has been no. Life is more than that. Humanity contains a spark of divinity. There's a reason, there's a God, there is a purpose. What that purpose is has been discussed again and again. Various theories have risen, gained popularity, faded, and died. The question remains, what is my purpose? Now, through many of your lives, that hasn't been a major question. In almost every life, there comes a moment or two, perhaps on a starry night looking off into space and having that feeling of smallness against the vastness of space, and that sense of interconnectedness with the universe that may flash through you, and the question arises. But generally, it's not a major issue. That curiosity through the ages has generally been satisfied by the priests, by the religious leaders, by whatever religion you adhered to. You never generally questioned the belief system that you had been born into. Very rarely. It was something that, if it concerned you at all, concerned you for a few minutes Friday night or Saturday morning or Sunday morning, depending on your religious affiliation. Your concern was to gain the money, to do the eating, to build the house, to do the sleeping, to survive in what seemed often a hostile environment, to work your way through the fundamental, bottom-line issues of human life, survival. But as your lives and your life experience continues, as you begin to gain greater underlying understanding, however difficult any particular incarnation may be, however blinded you may be, as you go through this process, you accrete knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and then hide it from yourself. And peek out and say, oh, there's another bit of it. And hide away again. But as you continue, you begin to see more. You're working your way through the darkness back to the light. And you see a glimmer, and a glimmer, and a glimmer, so that you can keep on and keep going. Well, finally, you work your way up through the issues, from survival on to more delicate issues, more difficult, more complex issues. And most of the time, you don't know you're doing anything but just living. But now, each of you, or you wouldn't be here, has reached a point in this life where you have questioned the values that you were born into, when the issue of your purpose for being here is not frivolous and is not a minor thing to be thought of once in a blue moon, it is central to your existence. Over and over, people come to me and say, Plautus, what is my purpose? An awakening is taking place here and here and here throughout Earth, throughout humanity, that is growing and soon shall cover the earth and transform humanity and transform the world. But now is the beginnings of awakening. Now you are beginning to rub the sleep from your eyes, to stretch and to wonder why you're awakening. What are you awakening to? All you know is that an itch has got to be scratched, that your life needs to be changed, that there is an unbearable need to grow and to understand. And you have set foot upon a path. And at the beginning you didn't even know there was a path. And when you began walking it, you didn't know what you were walking or where you were walking to. You began to develop that atrophied quality called faith. And you have needed that faith. Again and again and again, it's been all that has sustained you. Because by your own invitation, you have invited fear issues into your life so that you can examine them, feel them, let them flow through you, and finally cleanse you. As you look at the fears eyeball to eyeball and see that only your own belief is animating those fears, that the fears are fraudulent, that is a part of awakening. You are coming to your senses, each and every one of you. You have been through all of your lives, through all of human history, blinded and deafened, your heart closed, living in the dark. When you've been in the dark all of your life and all of your lives, and the light begins to dawn, it is a shattering experience. It is frightening. It shakes the foundations of your beliefs and of your life. The ways that you have chosen to hide from the fears that have been too great for you to deal with head on. And finally you begin to lay those fears to rest. The light begins to dawn. You begin to wake up. And you fill yourself with your own wholeness. This is the path that you are on. A path of awakening. What happens when you're awake? What happens when you are awake is that you become consciously the personification of your purpose. The purpose that you have followed even though you didn't have any idea there was such a thing as a purpose. The purpose you have been groping for and searching for and pleading for. The purpose that you finally begin a little bit to think, well, I have a feeling about what I'm doing or what I'm about to do. And it feels right. It feels as though I was meant to do this. But how much more exciting, how much more fulfilling to become fully awakened to why you are here, what there is for you to do, what is your particular special, irreplaceable, unique gift to give to the community of humanity. That is not a far-off time that we are speaking of. The reason you are so much in tumult now is that you are at that crisis point between sleep and wakefulness, between death and life, because you are waking up. This path that for many of you has seemed endless, that has been fueled by your faith, your blind faith, that has been full of pain and of confrontation and of sorrow and of bewilderment, confusion, old verities vanishing, an old way of life crumbling, an old personality peeling away from you until you stand absolutely naked as a babe, wondering again, who am I? Because this is a rebirth. Your first birth into wholeness. We must emphasize to you what wholeness means. When we say you are bringing spirit into harmony with body, into harmony with mind, so that you are becoming a triune human being, it is not just one out of three parts that is joining you. As you allow your spiritual understanding, the spirit that is within you, the higher self that has guided you behind the scenes through these many lives, to come into completeness within you, to open your heart, to fill yourself with love, to become complete. It's not just adding a third to the mix. It is absolutely and utterly changing everything. When the spirit assumes fullness, the mind and the body are energized. Your atomic structure is changing now. The perspective that you are achieving in your search, in your release, is building you into something more than humanity has ever been. You are beginning only now to scratch at the surface, to ask the little questions about your own power. What you are becoming is something new. You are becoming conscious. You are becoming Christ. You are accepting the gift of the Christ, the gift of love that opens up the heart, that brings up the spirit, that makes you face, through your own agreement, issue, challenge, fear after fear, guiding you step by step, because you can only take so much and no more. Because the process, however much it sometimes feels like it, isn't there to break you down, but to empty you, so that you can be filled up. And your willingness as you go through that process and assimilate bit by bit by bit the understanding that will finally cause you consciously, freely, bravely to change that life that has become a prison, to recreate yourself. Now you stand empty. But tomorrow you will be filled. That is not hyperbole. The third release of the Christ energy, you feel it now. Officially it's 2 days away, but it leaks. That third release of Christ energy is going to animate you, awaken you, shake you out of that sleep, and send you off down that path, stimulated, excited, your heart in your throat. Change after change after change is going to occur over the next few months. Not more than you can stand. And not as the earlier changes have been. And we want to emphasize this. We don't want to scare everybody. We want to say to you, yes, each succeeding release of Christ energy roughly every 6 months, in a flow. Each succeeding release is more powerful than the one before it. Each release of energy builds your own strength, your own flexibility, your own ability to grow, so that you can handle the next one. But the first two releases, and that period of time that you were on this path before that, the first two periods of release, largely you had to accept the results, the effects of the action of the energy release with, again, blind faith, with accompanying confusion. Shifting sand seemingly underneath your feet. Willingness brought to the utmost. You have, each one of you on this path, experienced enormous changes in your life, in varying ways, some very obvious, some very subtle, but in ways that you are aware of, that have been building over the last year, particularly, very strongly. You have, more or less willingly, more or less uncomplainingly, gone along with the changes, welcoming them in a way, fearing them in another, but primarily it's been an action of willingness. Now that changes. You are in the act of achieving your full consciousness. Now maybe you're only in kindergarten, but you're in the school. And so this release of Christ energy requires you to respond, to choose, to act, to be decisive, to take responsibility for yourself, to take some risks on your own behalf, out of your growing love for yourself. Your recognition, your understanding has grown to a point that you're capable of doing that. And you're going to be doing it. And it's intimately involved with your purpose. Now, we've said many times, people come and say, what's my purpose? And we say always, it is not a goal. A purpose is not a goal. It's not something way off there that you've got to trudge along looking for or hoping that it pops into your life. You are your purpose. Your process is your purpose. Your high purpose is activated consciously by your willingness to go through this process. Now that high purpose is going to be recognizable to you because you have redesigned yourself in such a way that you can no longer do anything except what is in and a part of your higher purpose. You may still have the same jobs that you had, but often they no longer fit. Often there's job changing, career changing, major alterations in your environment, your personal environment, because you recognize that you're different and you don't know how, and you're groping for change. What's happening is that no longer will you be able to fool yourself. No longer will you be detouring yourself. No longer will you be making do with less than you deserve. Now, if that doesn't change your life in a revolutionary way, then you've already been a saint and you don't need this process anyway. Because every one of you has boxed yourself in significant ways because of lies that you have believed about yourself and about your life, about your philosophical structure, lies that make you feel small, lies that make you feel ineffective, lies that make you feel small, lies that make you feel humiliated, lies that make you feel angry and thwarted, lies that make you feel frustrated, lies, lies, lies. You filled your life with lies. Lies to save the feelings of someone else. Lies to save your own feelings. Polite lies. Little white lies. But lies, not intentionally. Because you have been dwelling in a land of illusion, because you have been living in the dark, because you have been so frightened of your fears and their manifestations that you have been cowering inside the smallest box you could manage to fit into. There isn't a one of you that couldn't be accomplishing more and with greater joy than you ever have in this life or any other. Your potential is way, way, way beyond what you have actually attempted. Now you're going to be attempting more. Now you're going to be stretching those boundaries. Now, gradually, but inevitably, you are going to be awakening to what is in your best interest, which always is what is serving your purpose. Now, the purpose of all human life is generically healing. Healing. Some aspect of healing. Well, healing covers a lot. Healing relationships. Healing physically. Healing emotionally. Healing imbalance. Healing through drawing people together. Healing through your understanding. Healing through your empathy. Every purpose is a purpose of healing. Does that mean that all of you are to leave your practical jobs that are required, apparently, for ongoing civilization to maintain its lurching pace? Does it mean that you must take up your sackcloth and ashes and go off into some sinless state, living in a cave? No. It means that because you are being transformed, all that you do is being transformed. All of your relationships are being transformed. Your work is being transformed. Work that is not transformable in ways that suit you, you will inevitably leave. You won't be able to help yourself because you won't want to. You will recognize so clearly that life is here to be lived in the heart of your purpose and no other way. That everything else is make-do and not good enough. Well, obviously, since you have all cluttered your lives with a lot of things you'd like to get rid of and or certainly improve on, this is going to mean a lot of changes. The pace of change is going to be intense. We've been focusing of late upon this roughly 6-month period, beginning in a couple of days and going on into October, because that's the next release of Christ energy. It is released on an Aries eclipse, which means Aries energy is going to be empowering it. And if you follow astrology at all, you know that that is a very direct, even militant energy, that it is impulsive, that it is action-oriented, that it is quick-moving. It's not going to be a boring year. Boredom is going to be a thing of nostalgia. But the world doesn't end at the end of this 6 months, and while we're not going to go into the nature of the next release at this point, we want to say that there is a continuing intensity, but your own strength and your own stability is built. So while these early stages are very difficult, because you are undertaking major change, major adjustments in receiving a brand new energy and being transformed by it. Well, you are being transformed, and so each time you get stronger. Each time you are more aware of your essential wholeness. Each time that new surge of energy is more easily assimilable. And the more conscious you get, the more you become a partner in this, a conscious partner in this project, then the easier things get for you. So we want to say to those of you that are weary and heavy laden, that it isn't always going to be this tough. That life, human life in its transformation generally throughout the world is going to be a very, well, it's hard to find just the right adjective, but it's going to be a very active and dramatic and exciting time for all of you. Now, you notice we're not saying that it's going to be disastrous. And it seems that most of the people who are in the predicting business are predicting calamity. are predicting everything from nuclear holocaust to death by plagues, to the world collapsing in upon itself. My goodness, doesn't give you much reason to go through all this, does it? It's going to be a difficult time, as any birth is difficult, as any death is difficult. It is a new consciousness for Earth, it is a new consciousness for humanity, but it is new, and it's something that's being born. It's not dying, and you're not going to die with it, unless your particular path says it's time to split and leave this incarnation and move on to other things. You know, nobody's promising you eternal life in this life, this incarnation. But what we are saying is that you, now going through this difficult struggle, are anticipating a struggle that more and more of humanity is going to go through, and that many are going to fall along this route. There is going to be a lot of death, and there is going to be a fairish amount of destruction, a lot of dislocation, a lot of new beginnings, a lot of anger. And the reason that we point out the positive direction is not that we intend to be a Pollyanna, but we are talking about your reality, not the general world reality. You are the new reality. You are the new species. You are the triune human beings. You are the awakened ones. You are the whole humans. And that's going to make a big, big difference. Even now you begin to recognize, I'm getting smarter. I'm getting braver. I'm getting more effective. And you use positive thinking. And you visualize, and you're beginning to realize, yes, I can recreate my reality. You are beginning that process of wakening up enough so that you can understand when I tell you that when the world is going mad, you will be just about sane. That this change is not designed to destroy the new Adams and Eves. The intensity is great because we have a huge evolutionary leap taking place in the space of one single generation. Yes, it'll take many, many generations for the process to be completed, for all of humanity to be united, for all to be fully awakened and to understand the interconnection of human beings, to truly revolutionize the way the world's business is conducted. Now, for most of you, the idea of taking a human life is inconceivable. And you can even build up scenarios. Well, if somebody breaks into my house and threatens my family, well, then maybe I could take a gun. But think about it and really build that picture until it's real to you. You know, you couldn't ever pull that trigger. But there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of human beings who are pulling that trigger every day. Are you better than them? No, you're just a little closer to being awake. And your purpose is being vitalized. And you are going to be consciously serving your purpose, and whatever you do for a living, because you'll have to continue to do something for a living, we're sorry to report. But whatever you do for a living, your work is going to be served, your real work, the work of your heart, and you may do it in the office. And you may take one person and two people or three people and guide them into understanding and help them through crises and help to heal them in some way or another. After you've gone farther along this process of healing yourself, you just give out healing without even working at it. You're going to fill your purpose, whether you make a living at it or not. And you're going to be aware that you're doing it. And you're going to be so happy. Because finally, after all these centuries, all these millennia, you will no longer have to say, why am I here? What is my purpose? because you will be your purpose. The path. The path that you tread is an eternal path. No beginning, no ending. The purpose is finite. The purpose is limited to a particular incarnation. Sometimes the purpose is just to survive. Sometimes, as in this time, the purpose is to transform. But it's for that lifetime. The path that you tread now is a path that has existed forever and will continue to exist for forever. It is the path of eternal growth. It is the path that all are on. Many blindly, many in ignorance, many beginning to grasp the purpose of that path. We talk about the path with a capital P, of course. We talk about the path, and everybody pays service to the notion, yes, I'm on the path. Are you on the path? Oh, yes, I'm on the path. Are you on the path? And everyone agrees they're on the path, and no one knows what the path is. Because it's a path that's composed of 1,000 individual paths. It's your personal path. And if somebody says, are you on the path? You say, well, yes, I'm on my path. And you're on your path. And a lot of those paths are going in the same, all the paths are going in the same direction. But some of them are taking detours, some of them are taking the long route, some of them are on the freeway, and some of them are on a back road somewhere meandering off, but it's still their path. And sometimes it does flow swiftly, and sometimes it by fits and starts, and sometimes you get stalled along the side of the road. But it is a path that is eternal. It is the path that defines your own progress. We've always used the analogy of this earth as being a school. And it works pretty well, but even more than a school, it is a part of a path that encompasses earth and the human experience, but that's just part of it, just a step. And the farther you move, the more steps there are. And the farther you go, the more steps you see ahead of you. And it's not a treadmill. It's a path of growth onward to oneness with God. What is God? It's impossible, frankly, to say what is God in English or in any other human language because the languages are conditioned by the limitation of dimensions that are accorded to you in this particular game. God is not, needless to say, the old bearded fellow, but he is, of course, too. God is also not he, but she is, of course, too. God is everywhere, but so are you. What is the difference between you and God? There isn't any. There isn't any. The closest we can come would be to say that you are like an atom in the body of God. You are God. The atom doesn't stay in one place, you know. You are completely God, and you are partly God. You are God waking up. The more you wake up, the more you exhibit your godlike powers, the closer you get to what you might call the Godhead. But since we're dealing with eternity, the analogy of a body doesn't work either. So again, we are brought back to the issue of faith. You are God, you are not God. You are becoming God, you are already God. But all you need to concern yourself with is that here you stand on a particular section of a path that goes back as far as you can see and ahead as far as you can see, and that you are in charge of this piece of the path. And as you move your feet along that path, you are in charge of that bit of the path. And then you are in charge of the next bit of the path. You have always been in charge of the path, but it has been your higher self that's been doing the guiding so you don't fall off. Your conscious self, the ego self, the tip of the consciousness iceberg, has not been aware through most of your lives of the existence of anything called a path or anything like a path. Your higher self has guided you because you couldn't find your own way. Wholeness means uniting higher self with ego self, opening both to complete awareness, so that you are guided. Your ego isn't impaired, it's enhanced. But now the fuel of information that feeds it comes from higher self, comes from intuition, comes from the wisdom that you share with all of your brothers and all of your sisters and all of the universe. So you're going to make a lot better judgments. You're going to understand yourself a lot better than you do now. And the guidance that flows into you and animates you in your wholeness brings you that much closer to realization of your godliness. You know, if you look back in the Old Testament of the Bible, you see the emphasis is on fear. Fear God. Now, that didn't really mean get down and tremble and shake, although a lot of that went on. But it meant to have awe at this majesty so far above you, and reference constantly made to the insignificance of the human being in God's eyes. Your God is an angry God. Your God is a jealous God. Your God is a projection of you. But your consciousness is coming so you can see more. You don't have to project human qualities on God. Instead, you take God qualities and become them. You're waking up. You're waking up into your godhood. You're waking up into the conscious use of your purpose. You're waking up to the fact that you are in charge. This is your path. It is unique. It belongs to no one else but you. No one else is in charge of it. However much they may love you, however much they may seek to guide you, however well-intentioned their advice may be, it ain't their path. You must take the responsibility for that piece of your path. That is freedom. That is unifying you with your purpose. That is blending higher consciousness and ego consciousness into wholeness. That is saying, I am in charge. Now, is that blasphemy? No. However you picture God, you think he wants a bunch of cripples following him around? God wants buddies, colleagues, friends. Do you think God needs worship? No. Jerry Falwell needs worship. God does not need worship, my friends, any more than you do. And so what you are doing is coming into wholeness with God, and it's not blasphemy. It's beginning to see who you are, that you are indeed a child of God. And God doesn't punish his child into immobility. God doesn't lock his child up in stocks. God doesn't beat his child. God loves his child. God is his child. The child is father to the man. You are all God. You are all God's children. You are all one, and you're waking up to it. What a wonderful moment. Focus on the wonder of that moment. Focus on the fact that your world, is getting bigger, clearer. You are getting stronger, braver. It doesn't matter what's happening around you. What's happening around you is a death and a rebirth. And what are you a part of? That which is being born. But for the first time, not being born into helplessness, not being born into fear, not being born into darkness, being born into wholeness. Test your wholeness every day. Trust your hunches. Test your intuition. Accept challenges. Don't hide and don't shy away. And don't think little me. And don't focus on the suffering. The suffering is passing away. Suffering simply means experiencing anyway. Your purpose is awakening in you. There isn't a one of you that has to ask Plautus or anyone else anymore, what is my purpose and how do I do it? You're already doing it. Pretty soon you're going to know what it is you're already doing. And continue it. And build upon it. And perfect it. It's not at issue. It's not a question. It is inevitable. So don't worry about it. And don't worry about it is perhaps the best advice that I can leave you with, because worrying is a complete waste of time. And those of you that are on this path, those of you who are awakening to your purpose, recognize that you have absolute power over your life. That the only times you get in trouble is when you lose sight of that fact, when you give your power away to someone else, or fail to acknowledge to yourself that you have it and use it. When you act boldly and confidently, trusting your own intent, believing that you are a whole and healing person, that you will not, no matter what you do, if a burglar breaks into your house, you're not going to kill him. No matter what you do, you are not going to betray yourself. No matter what opportunities open up to you, you're not going to fail. Only fear will bring you into disaster. Only fear, pride, envy, all of the elements that make up the many-faceted dark jewel of fear, every single one of them can get you in trouble. Where you take the wrong job for the wrong reasons. Where you go ahead and do something filled with dread because there's maybe a little extra money in it, it looks like, possibly. When you try and try and try to push a boulder up a mountain, you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to punish yourself. You don't have to beat yourself. You don't have to worry about what you're going to do next. You don't have to worry about the outcome of your actions. You need to trust yourself that your actions are the actions of a loving, healing being. They will bring joy to you and joy to others. Ultimately, you're going to make a few people mad making these many changes. But what you do on your own behalf can bring harm to no one. Can bring harm to no one. You are trustable. Take that responsibility. Act in your own best interests. Recognize that this is an opening to joy. That at last you are blossoming. At last you have left your solitude and your fear and your alienation, your sense of separation behind you. And it isn't some Pollyanna, hopeful thing. It is a reality that is being born, that is inevitably a part of human growth. It's not an accident that you're here now. You're here because you've earned it, going through many, many lives, many, many experiences, until finally you gain the point of recognition where you can wake up. You're qualified. You're deserving. And now we're going to end this portion of this evening's festivities and come back in a few minutes and answer questions.
What are some concrete, practical things that we can do to help understand what our purpose is, like on a daily basis?
Yes, well, what we want to emphasize in this is that you are already living your purpose, that you are already taking the steps necessary, that in your willingness to move forward, in your willingness to be guided by higher consciousness, you are setting forth on that journey, and that your awakening is gradually making it more of a conscious process. Now, to grease the wheels a little, in meditation we would say that's your workshop. And we want to say that to everyone, that if you meditate, and we highly recommend it, that is the place for you to do your work. Why? Because in a meditative state, in what is called an alpha state or lower state of brainwave activity, you can open a door to higher consciousness. You can connect, and the more you meditate and the greater your adeptness becomes, you can connect very profoundly with your own higher nature, opening yourself to intuition. You can also use that level of awareness to create a new reality, to test your number of different ways. It is a level of activity in which your wishes, your desires, your commands become much more powerful. And so we would say in a meditative state, you can help this process by visualizing beyond your previous belief as to your own ability. Now, if you have never played the piano and you visualize being a concert pianist, you'd better be prepared for years of practice, because this isn't magic. But if you are in your job, in your work, in a relationship, in any circumstance, visualize that circumstance, make it as real as possible. And we want to say this: don't project out onto an inner screen. Feel within. Feel how you feel when you have felt the most competent. Feel how you feel when you really feel powerful. Feel how you feel when you feel full of joy and confidence and ability. You will embed that aspect of consciousness, that energy, into your being, and gradually help yourself build beyond previous notions of limitation. If you are faced with a problem that you wish to solve, a decision that must be made, while we say to you, act impulsively, because you've really reached a point where you can be guided by higher self, when you can be guided by your intuition, but you need to test it so you can get that positive feedback. And you say, I'm not going to think this all over. I'm not going to be or not to be about it. I'm not going to shilly-shally. I'm going to decide. Among the characteristics of this time over the next several months is that you're going to be put into positions where you need to make that kind of quick decision. You're going to have to trust yourself. And you will prove to yourself that you can be trusted. So help yourself that way in the use of meditation. And by opening yourself to opportunity, by being alert to opportunity that may come to you disguised. And that means living in the moment. So you can help yourself achieve your full consciousness of purpose by not constantly going over things of the past, by not worrying about what might take place tomorrow or the day after, but making, as we said before, this spot in your path your home, where you are fully in command, that moving moment that is the only reality that you have any control over. The more you are able to fill that moment with your consciousness, the more conscious control you have over your reality. And so when you catch yourself getting a furrowed brow and worrying about this, that, or the other thing, most of which you never have any control over, because anyone who's ever made a plan knows that plan never turns out the way you had in mind. It may work out much better, but never the way you thought it would. And so if you're letting go of excess baggage, if you're letting go of worrying about a future that you don't bring into being that way. Yes?
Plautus, how can we best tune into the new energy that is being released on Sunday?
Well, I want to say this without any criticism, because this is the way you've been taught, and this is the way you think, and you think there has to be some sort of work to do. That in some way this has to be hard, or in some way it can be made easier. We would say you are already open to the energy. The energy isn't going to come knocking vainly at the door. It is coming through the crown chakra and spreading itself through the rest of your being in a process of transformation. So you assimilate the energy, and the energy becomes you, an enhanced, new, improved you. And you are already ready for it. So there isn't really anything you have to do. And as we've already indicated, while the official moment comes with the eclipse on the 29th, it doesn't, it's already entering you now, it's beginning, it's going to come in a flood after that, but you don't have to hurry it up, and there isn't any preparation you really have to make for it. But there is power in symbolism. There is power in ritual. And it may help you in other ways, not through literally letting the energy in, that'll happen anyway, but it may help you to bring your focus into greater clarity, to inspire you. If you do choose some time that day to spend in meditation, in perhaps in a review of the progress you've already made, and if you have to look into the past, that's the way to do it, to see how beautifully you have developed. And sometimes it helps. We've recommended often journal keeping, because you can recapture then a state of consciousness that is no longer yours by looking back at a journal entry of a year before. But you could stand at this moment and see how far you've come, see the changes you've already made in your life, see the preparation that is now reaching fruition. And by opening yourself in that positive manner and emphasizing how strong you're getting, yes, that will maximize in your own mind that access of new energy. Yes.
Plautus, I have a question about my meditation. About a year ago you said not to do anything about controlling it or whatever, just kind of let it be. And I've come quite a ways in a year. Very often it seems like I'm just kind of in and out of almost a sleep state with it, and I'm not really doing anything.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of curious, is that the most effective way I could be meditating right now?
For those of you who've meditated over a period of years, you've doubtless noticed that there are times when it's easier for you, there are times when it's harder for you, there are times when it's more productive, there are times when it seems a waste of time. A lot of that is dependent upon many rhythms going on that affect your life. But part of it has to do with the fact that the action of meditation is also in a state of change. Meditation, as valuable as it is now, is soon going to be something that you don't need to do anymore, because you are coming into wholeness. You meditate and reach a different state of consciousness. Well, that state of consciousness is going to become a part of your fully wakeful state of consciousness, that deeper perspective, that wider understanding, that expansion of the self that you feel in a meditative state is going to be a part of your waking state. You are now, and in the last year, you have been receiving so much new energy, new transformative energy. You are so much coming into your wholeness that the state of meditation is going to feel differently to you now, and it's going to feel not uniformly differently, because you are each unique, and the changes are going to be felt in generally rather subtle ways at this stage of the game. So we still urge meditation to you, but we urge you also to be flexible, that if a way of meditation or a quality of meditation that once you had seems no longer present, do not mourn it. Do not attempt to resuscitate it. Rather, follow the guiding of that inner awareness and meditate or do not meditate as is demanded. What we're saying to all of you is that in this process of taking responsibility for your life, you have to recognize how deep that goes. You are taking full responsibility for your life. Why? Because you are in full command of your life. You are in full command of this awakening being that is you. In full command, although you're only beginning your understanding of them, nevertheless you have an array of psychic spiritual talents that are also acting to enhance you. So you need to trust yourself at all levels. Be sublimely confident that the decisions that you make are the right decisions, because no longer is it going to be bullheadedness, No longer is it going to be plunging in and holding your nose and hoping for the best. But you're going to have to prove that to yourself by acting again and again on what seems like impulse, by acting as though you are the king of the mountain, as though you are the absolute ruler, because you are, and your kingdom is yourself. And the more you act in that confidence, with that mantle of greatness around you, the greater you will become, the wiser you will become in the realization of your wisdom. So take chances, and you're not going to be disappointed, because you're not going to be acting blindly, even if consciously you think, oh, no, I don't really know what's going on here. How do I dare decide? I have choice A, and I have choice B, and maybe a lot of others. How can I choose when I can't see ahead? But you can. You're just not noticing, because it's still an act of faith. And you say, all right, it's an act of faith, and I'm going to choose this. How blind a choice is that? It's not a blind choice at all. It may fly in the face of logic. It may fly in the and will fly in the face of your previous view of yourself and your limitations. It may seem to be the more dangerous of the two choices. But nevertheless, jump. Take the brave choice, and do this all through your life, whether it's in any area of your life. You are changing. As you become more one with each other, you are also becoming more unique within yourself, because you are discovering who you really are. And all of the socialization and all of the peer pressure and all of the environmental pressure and all of the cultural pressure no longer will mean so much in terms of determining who you are and how you see yourself, because you're going to be seeing yourself with greater and greater clarity from the inside. And the way you do that is, in the beginning, acting in trust that that's going to happen. Yes.
Plautus, I just recently heard that tape lecture that you gave on extraterrestrials.
Yes.
And you talked about an overt coming of extraterrestrials in non-human form.
Yes.
Which is different than what I've heard you say at other times. I'm just wondering what the difference was between those.
Well, we don't know what the difference would be, because while in most cases, particularly now, and perhaps that's the difference, particularly now, when the numbers of those who are awakening into wholeness are relatively small. You are the pioneers. You are the ones who are beginning. Because not everyone born into human life in this time frame is to be, has chosen to be, is qualified to be, ready to be a part of this evolutionary leap, because so much of it is based upon faith and not sure and certain five senses knowledge. And must be so, that overt manifestations that you could see on television and that you could read in the newspapers, and a flying saucer that you could go and touch, and a scaly alien that was absolutely and without question there in front of you, it would change things enormously. And those who have not come here to be believers, but rather to be part of that fear energy and experiencing that for their own purposes and their own ultimate needs and enhancement, for them, they would say, oh my goodness, well, this must be true. For I see it, I can touch it, I can smell it, I can feel it. And that can't be now, because this is still so much a process of faith. But that's not forever. Things change as the time moves on. And you will note, those of you who have been aware of the phenomenon of extraterrestrials, that there is more and more talk of it, that there is more and more evidence, more and more rumor of concrete evidence, and a gradual preparing of humanity, or at least segments of humanity, to actually encounter such a phenomenon. And you'll see it in films in which the alien, far from being frightening, is delightful and non-threatening. Wise, perhaps, but not something to be frightened of, however different it may look. Well, this is a sort of propaganda. It's a sort of preparation of to include something new in your common reality. The fact is that many, many star systems support life. The fact is that many, many dimensions, not this particular space-time continuum, support life. The fact is that there are many, many beings of varying sorts that are deeply interested in the human process of change, the welcoming of humanity into the society of worlds. And there is such a thing, and there are other dimensions, and there is alien contact. And the time will come when that will be manifested overtly. And we're not going to pinpoint that time because it isn't for a while yet. But it's not for a long, long while away either. So that's what we have to say about that. Yes.
You have mentioned testing our intuition. Could you give us some practical suggestions about how to do that in daily life?
Primarily, it's as we've already said, that you're acting by what seems to be impulse, and trusting that it's not impulse, that it's understanding guided invisibly by your own higher knowledge. And it's a question of practice makes perfect. Pretty soon you learn it's difficult to take chances the first few times. And then it gets easier because the feedback is positive. And you think, oh, well, I did that, and I didn't fall on my face, and it did work out. And it makes it a little bit easier to take the next opportunity that comes along, even though it does conflict with your image of yourself as limited. So it's really a matter of intelligently and consciously taking risks in your life, not foolish risks. You're not going to jump out of a window in the faith that you're going to land in a haystack. It has to be consistent with your own deepening and widening understanding. You are growing wiser, therefore you can trust yourself to act wisely. And even when you do not see the process, well, when you have a thought, you do not see the synaptic process that takes place in the brain that produces that thought into conscious awareness. And yet it doesn't stop you from thinking or acting on your thoughts because you can't see the process. Here, again, you can't see the process of intuition that the Spirit informs you with. So you simply leap. You take your choice. And trust your guess. You know, what usually happens is that people don't follow their hunches. They don't follow their guesses. They don't follow their intuition. Because the intuition, as the voice of the Spirit, ignores fears. The ego is conditioned to function only under the whip of fear. And so when you get an intuitive thought, you think, I know, I'm going to do bing, 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 bing. Down come the shutters. Up comes the logic barrier. You say, well, wait a minute now, wait. I can't really do that. Well, I remember back the last time I tried something like that. No, that didn't work out at all. And I should be a little more careful. That's taking a big chance, you know. I could lose my salary. I could put my family in jeopardy. That's it. I could put my family. I better not do it at all. And so you quietly calm yourself and you ignore and pretty soon the intuition is forgotten, and all that remains is that hollow structure of logic that has prevented you from acting out of spiritual inspiration. Yes.
For a long time I've been meaning to ask you, every time I come to one of your sessions, and the message is always perfect for my needs. And I wondered, how do you pick the message that you give us this gift tonight?
Well, we start out by asking, what does Echo need to know? No. It is an illustration of the oneness, the interconnectedness of all of you. That we hear this quite a lot. You know, people come to the Wednesday session and say, I didn't ask a question because you answered the questions when you answered somebody else. You are not, though you are unique, so different from each other. You are, in fact, one. This process that you're going through, we can take this Friday night and talk to a bunch of people and tell them all the same thing. And it will apply to each of them in different ways because they're dealing with different issues from different perspectives and going through a process that is uniquely their own. But there is a timing that unites all of you in this. And so what rings a bell for one will ring a bell for another. And you are guided to come here at this evening to hear what needs to be said. Now, is that true for everyone in the world? Could Plautus sit in the largest coliseum of the world and fit millions of people in and say exactly what everyone wanted to hear and needed to know? No. No. This is one voice filtered through one channel with one way of speaking and one vision, one way of illuminating issues, one kind of language, one kind of vision. And because we are interconnected with you, some will hear and say, that's what I needed to hear. And others will hear and say, I don't know about that. And others will say, that guy's nuts, and go on and look elsewhere. And so there are some who respond to this way, some who respond to another way. There are so many roads that compose this path, all leading to the same destination. So you come together and we share with you. We connect, of course, with each one of you, with the higher selves. And there are some things that are said that are aimed directly at one person, without saying so. But generally, it's because you are interconnected and because you are going through the same process. And if we speak in general enough terms, you can all identify with it. Yes?
Plautus, you mentioned Wednesday evening that there would be changes coming in my life in June, I believe it was. And I was just wondering, is there anything I need to do to prepare myself for those changes?
Well, we think you are preparing yourself for the changes, and you know when we pick a particular time, and we're often wrong because you do have free will and you can change these matters with delays. But when we do pick a date like that, we don't pick it blindly. We pick it on the basis of present probabilities extrapolated into the future. And so in connecting with your higher self, we see events transpiring at a certain pace and at a certain acceleration of pace. That pace is dependent upon your readiness to receive. You are not going to get a pop quiz. The challenges that come to you are intimately timed with your own ability to deal with them. Even if they seem a little too challenging at the moment, you again trust. You can trust that in fact you are prepared to handle whatever comes up, because it wouldn't come up if you weren't prepared. So there isn't any real preparation to do except your general willingness to change and your willingness to make choices when choice points come. So you are ready for now, and then you will be ready for then.
Thank you.
Plautus, I've been noticing an awakening of my intuition, or not intuition, but rather telepathy.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, do you have any guidance as far as its further development or use?
Practice. It's the same with any talent. You should treat these talents as they awaken in you like any other talent. Practice makes perfect. Practice builds your ability. It gets you familiar with how to manipulate this new energy. And at first it's the equivalent of playing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And pretty soon it's symphonies and sonatas. Because it is an energy that is you. You know, we talk of it as an energy, but it's not anything separate. It's a new quality of yourself that you can play with like-minded friends who are open to these matters. Play games, transfer numbers to each other. Transfer colors are generally pretty easy to do. Or blindfold yourself. You can make a party game out of it because it's all exercise and it's a lot of fun too. And you can take a color sheet with a number of different colors. And as you begin to practice blindfolded, you can, from the emanation of energy from that color, determine what color it is. You can tell somebody can hold a card, an opaque card up with a shape on it, and you can tell what shape it is. Every time? No. But gradually building that strength, that talent, and exercising it. And we would say to all of you that you're all better off making games out of a lot of the things that are going on in your lives. There's a tendency among those on this path in the New Age, because of the difficulty that you're going through, because of your own spiritual dedication, because of the seriousness of the matters that are occurring in your life as you let go of your fears. There's a tendency to get too serious. There's a tendency to put spirituality on a pedestal, and that's a big mistake. While the game is serious, it is a game. You are already perfect, you see. And you are rediscovering that perfection, and in the act of rediscovering it, you are perfecting on perfection, which sounds like a conundrum, but is not. You are, in your exploration of the dark, finding your way back to the light, but in the course of the exploration, you are building your strength, you are refining your energy. And so in this matter of these talents that come up, as you exercise them, as you play with them, you are building them up. And as you build your own sense of play, that which has been depressing and difficult for you can be an action of joy, which it is intended to be. We do not underestimate the difficulty of this process, but we cannot overestimate the importance of having fun with it. Yes.
Plautus, could you tell something about how these changes affect our lives together with other people, how our interaction, communication?
Yes, well, there's a dramatic effect on your interaction with other individuals, on your relationships. The nature of the effect really depends on who the people are and how they are related to you and what the process is that's going on between you. But as a general statement, we would say that a lot of people are going to disapprove very strongly of the changes that are going on in you, not only in your belief system, which is a threat to those who are afraid to change, but in your being, in your manner, in your personality. Suddenly you are demanding. Suddenly you are insisting on a fair shake. Suddenly you are putting yourself at the head of the line. Suddenly you are no longer bending over backward to please everyone but yourself. Well, that can be extremely annoying if you are one of the people that has been benefiting from your self-sacrifice. And so relationships are frequently under great stress. Now, some of them will break up, and we don't want to shilly-shally about that. Some of them are going to just break up and crumble away. They're not going to fit. The energies just aren't going to connect anymore. And there's a lot of changing of personnel in the cast of your personal play, as you've noticed. You're meeting a lot of new people, and suddenly you think, whatever, I haven't seen so-and-so for a long time, or I no longer seem to connect with, and I don't think that such and such likes me anymore. Well, that's the way it goes. That's going to be some of it. Some of it, your changes are going to waken the other, and it's going to quicken the friendship. And it's going to enlighten a relationship. But it is going to be disruptive in its initial form. And not in every case, but very often. You are, by your changes, putting yourself in a new position vis-a-vis everyone else. Even those others who are on their own path of personal change. And so you have to live with that and recognize that it is a part of your growth. And it is a part of the growth of others. Even if you're a burr under the saddle, it may be that reminder later will serve as a stimulus for change on the part of someone else. So we would say to yourself, recognize that change is the constant. That change is not a threat. That you are creating a positive reality as you redefine yourself. And that in the process of that redefinition, the cast of characters is going to change. and it is not a loss. That which comes into your life will always be greater than that has left it. That which is in your life that becomes transformed as a result of your transformation naturally is an enhancement. So you don't need to worry about that process either. And what we keep saying is you don't need to worry about anything. But we want to remind you of that again and again. And in the case of relationships, be free, be open. Recognize that in your ongoing path you need new challenges. And many love relationships are being deeply challenged by this. Many of you are meeting soulmates and going through the struggle of fear that is inevitably the barrier between soulmates before they finally work it out and come together and heal each other and themselves. Many of you in this process are ending old relationships. Some of them are just the husks of relationships that died long ago and that you've hung on to and the other person has hung on to out of fear. Out of thinking, well, I don't want to be alone, and what will happen to me, and what will happen to the kids, and what will my family think, and what will his family think, or her family think, and what will everyone think, and it's all more important than you. Well, as you begin to recognize that the value of your life depends upon your own importance, all of these things must change, and it isn't selflessness, it's enlightenment. It isn't selfishness, it's enlightenment. Yes.
Plautus, I have a new baby, 9 months old, and I'm not really sure I wanted the baby. But my husband said he'd leave me if I didn't have the baby. And I find I'm subconsciously catching myself resenting the baby. Is there any way I can learn to accept that baby totally, subconsciously too?
Yes, because the anger that you feel is not in fact toward the baby. It is deflected anger. The anger is toward the husband. And the anger is toward yourself for having given away your power. Because you do absolutely have the right to make choices. And if you make a choice not to continue a particular pregnancy, you aren't costing anyone anything. You are not denying a soul the right to enter life. You are not dodging anything at all. What is important is that process of decision. How you make the decision. Whether the decision is made through love, through clarity, through understanding, through enlightened self-interest, or whether the decision is made through fear, through being forced. If the fear is the motivation, then the result is going to be anger, is going to be loss of control. You gave away your power to choose. And you are as angry or angrier at yourself than you are at the husband. And the child you see is a representative of your own failure of will. The way to change the attitude toward the child is to change your response. The way to change the attitude toward one that is a symbol of failure is to succeed. In other words, to take charge of your life, to make the decisions, however difficult they may be, that restore unto you the power that is yours. The power to take full responsibility for your life and your choices. When you take that back for yourself, you will love yourself and you will be proud of yourself. And that which had been a symbol of failure becomes what it really is. A trigger that has acted for you to heal yourself. Then the child is loved all the more. Because without that circumstance, you might never have awakened into the need to reclaim your power. Yes.
I'm curious what's going on with all these evangelists right now.
Yes. It's the famous falling out among thieves. There is significance in the timing of this. A significance in the relationship to Christ energy. There is significance into the polarity, the polarization that is taking place in humanity. We have pointed out at other times and at other circumstances that have acted to undermine faith in something that had been previously unquestioned, to undermine, in the case of terrorism, in the case of street violence, to undermine your sense of personal sanctity and safety. And for many, this particular circumstance is acting to undermine a false belief. Now, we are not condemning Christianity in any sense. Our work is based entirely upon Christianity. It is the energy of Christ. It is Christ returned in energy form. It is an enhancement of the vision of Christianity, but it is not a repudiation of Christianity. But these gentlemen in their work are, in their very lives, an approach a repudiation of Christianity. In their use of fear. Fear is not the energy of Christ. Demands for money. Well, money, there's nothing wrong with money, but the love of money is the root of evil. In their use of manipulation, in the tantalizing of the carrot of heaven and the stick of hell and damnation. Now, they may, in some cases are, quite sincere in their belief structure, but their sincerity doesn't make it right. The sincerity doesn't make it accurate. The sincerity doesn't make it a reflection of Christ's truth. There is a great deal of power here, and the power has been abused and abused and abused. And who is being abused? Those who are the poorest in spirit, those who are the poorest in wallet, those who can least afford to be humiliated again, robbed again, manipulated again, prove to them again and again that they are worthless. It is the worship of idols. And the idols must be seen to have clay feet. The idols must be seen to be human beings, not less than human beings, but human beings with weaknesses and strengths, who struggle with lust and with avarice, with jealousy, with envy, as all do. They are examples to be learned from in ways that they never intended to teach. It is a many-leveled circumstance, and on one level it's comedy. And on one level it's tragedy. But on every level it's illumination. See what there is to be seen. Learn the lesson that is being offered for you. The struggle over money, over power, over control, over people's hearts. You are not alone in seeing through this charade. Many of those who have been captured by that illusion are seeing the crack in the mirror. It's going to free people. And it's going to make the rest of them more defensive. It's going to, in other words, increase the polarization that is going to increase and increase between that which is dying and that which is being born until critical mass and breakthrough and birth and death.
Plautus, is there any parallel, say for instance, with the Hitler movement with giving your power to, in quotes, religious movement?
Well, of course there's a parallel. There is, and it's a parallel that has gone on and on and on through history. Wherever human beings try to take power over other human beings, they're all being Hitlers. It doesn't matter what their motivations are. If you take someone else's power, you are a thief. If you say, I know more than you do, listen to what I say and follow what I say, you are a thief. Learn what I have to teach and you will go to heaven. Otherwise, forget it. You're taking away the right to choose, the right of free will. You're a thief. Humanity has been filled with thieves on the political arena and the religious arena, wherever there is power. The seeking for power corrupts. Doesn't matter how good the motivations were. Everyone has good motivations. Don't you think Hitler thought he was a wonderful guy? That he was doing the best that could be done for his people? Of course he did. Otherwise, no one would have believed him. So don't look at what's being said. Don't follow leaders. You're the leader. You're the only one on that piece of that path. And you're in charge of it. And in order to cooperate and live and get the rent paid and have some safety in the streets, you make certain allowances for governmental bodies and for other intrusions into your free will. But you can't give away your right to be the best judge of what is good for you. Because those of you who are coming to terms with yourself and with your fears will never choose against anyone else's best interests when you choose your own best interest. Because you are enlightened. You can trust yourself. Hitler couldn't trust himself, but he didn't know that. Jimmy Swaggart can't trust himself, but he doesn't know that. You can trust yourself to choose wisely and well, and to choose for yourself. Don't give away your power. It's all yours. Yes.
Plautus, is there an extraterrestrial landing that is due to take place in August where the public is going to gather to greet them?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
If Paul is coming through his superconscious, why is he coming through as Plautus? Why? I'm trying to understand.
Yes, it's a good question. And it's really been for the sake of convenience. Plautus is the voice of Paul's higher self. Now, the voice, obviously, in order to be spoken, must work through the machinery here and the machinery here, and must then be filtered through the ego consciousness. Paul's here. Plautus is here. You are there. Your higher self is there. Now, you can call your higher self Fred. You can call your higher self anything you want, if it makes it more real to you. Sometimes it's difficult, when ego consciousness is all that you have, it's impossible to picture another consciousness and say, that's me too. Now you're coming into a point where these two consciousnesses are blending. This is an interim path. This phenomenon of channeling is temporary. As unification comes, as higher self and ego self merge, then obviously there's no need to channel. The wisdom and the access to knowledge is present within Paul, within you, within all of you. It's a part of a process. Well, it happens to be part of Paul's process and part of his purpose to be doing this task now for his own good, as well as for whatever other good may be sown through this. Now, when this process began for Paul, when the channeling began something over 7 years ago, Paul said, is there, in meditation, is there a name that I can use for this guidance that speaks through me? Understanding very little about the nature of the guidance, the nature of the identity, and wanting to have some greater clarity for his own sake, and also a more convenient way of speaking about this higher self channeling through, giving it a name. So, we gave a name, Plautus. Why? Well, Plautus was sort of the Neil Simon of ancient Rome, a popular playwright of comedies, very popular in his own day, whose plays, somewhat redesigned, are still popular today. Chosen because this is a past life of Paul's, the life as Plautus, the comedy writer, because Paul in this life was a comedy writer for many years, because the name Plautus and Paul are interrelated, because the talents of Paul are complementary to the persona of Plautus. Any other incarnation could also have been chosen, but this seemed the most applicable to this particular situation. Paul and Plautus are in the act of becoming one, and those of you who have been listening to me go on and on for many years now can recognize that there is a gradual closing of the gap between the two aspects of being. And the time will come when that's completed. And Plautus, as Plautus, will be no more. And Paul, as he was, will be no more. And instead there will be the completed being. Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yes. Now we're going to close this evening's reading, and we thank you all for your attention and bid you Godspeed as this journey continues to open to you.
Thank you.